Starbucks was closing 900 stores. Their stock had crashed 75%. Customers stopped coming. Then the founder came back and did something no CEO had ever done before. What happened next saved the company and changed it forever. In 2008, Starbucks was dying. The company that turned coffee into a lifestyle brand was failing. Their stores felt like fast food joints. The coffee tasted burnt. Customers were going to independent cafes or Dunkin' Donuts. Wall Street expected Starbucks to collapse. The stock price dropped from $40 to $8 in 1 year. Howard Schultz, the founder who had stepped down as CEO, watched his life's work crumbling. So he did something almost no founder has successfully done. He came back as CEO and rebuilt Starbucks from the inside out. He closed every single store for an afternoon to retrain employees. He shut down 900 locations permanently. He went back to the original vision that made Starbucks special. Today we're going to break down exactly how Starbucks lost their way, why growth destroyed what made them great, how Howard Schultz saved the company with decisions that seemed insane, what the turnaround teaches us about leadership and vision, and why a Starbucks comeback is one of the most inspiring business stories ever told. This isn't just about coffee. This is about what happens when companies forget why they exist and what it takes to remember. Let's start with how Starbucks began, because understanding the origin explains why the crisis was so devastating. Howard Schultz didn't actually found Starbucks. Three guys, Jerry Baldwin, Zev Siegel, and Gordon Boker, started Starbucks in Seattle in 1971. They sold coffee beans and equipment. You couldn't buy a cup of coffee at early Starbucks. It was just a retail store. Howard Schultz joined Starbucks in 1982 as director of marketing. He loved the company and the coffee culture. In 1983, Schultz visited Italy and had an epiphany. He saw Italian espresso bars where people gathered, socialized, and enjoyed coffee as an experience. These weren't just coffee shops. They were community gathering places. Schultz came back to Seattle convinced Starbucks should serve coffee drinks, not just sell beans. The original founders disagreed. They wanted to stay focused on retail. Frustrated, Schultz left Starbucks in 1985 and opened his own coffee bar called Il Giornale. It was successful, and in 1987, Schultz raised money to buy Starbucks from the original founders for $3.8 million. Schultz merged Il Giornale with Starbucks and kept the Starbucks name. His vision was cleared Starbucks would be the third place between home and work, a comfortable space where people could relax, meet friends, read, or work. The coffee would be premium quality. The atmosphere would be welcoming. Baristas would know your name and your order. This vision worked beautifully. Starbucks expanded from Seattle across America. People loved the consistent quality, the comfortable seating, the free Wi-Fi, the friendly baristas. Starbucks wasn't selling coffee. They were selling an experience. You paid for dollars for a latte because you were buying a moment of comfort and community. Starbucks went public in 1992 at $17 per share. The company grew explosively. From 140 stores in 1992 to 1,500 stores by 1998. They expanded. Internationally, Starbucks became a status symbol. Carrying a Starbucks cup signaled you had good taste and disposable income. The growth was intoxicating. Wall Street loved it. Investors wanted more stores, more growth, more revenue. Starbucks delivered. By 2000, they had over 3,000 stores. By 2005, over 10,000 stores. They were opening stores at a rate of multiple per day. Starbucks was everywhere, but something was being lost. In the rush to grow, Starbucks made compromises. They started using automatic espresso machines instead of traditional manual machines. This made drinks faster, but less artisanal. They put coffee grinders behind the counter instead of in the open. This improved efficiency but eliminated the coffee aroma that filled stores. They changed food offerings. Early Starbucks had a small selection of pastries from local bakeries. As they scaled, they needed standardized food from centralized suppliers. The pastries came wrapped in plastic. They were heated in warming ovens, filling stores with the smell of burnt cheese instead of coffee. Store design changed too early. Starbucks had comfortable couches, warm lighting, and unique local art. New stores used standardized designs that could be built quickly. They felt corporate and generic. The soul was disappearing. The barista experience degraded in early Starbucks. Baristas were trained extensively. They knew about coffee origins and brewing methods. They built relationships with regular customers. As stores multiplied, training shortened, turnover increased. Baristas became order takers rushing to meet speed metrics instead of craftspeople. Howard Schultz saw these problems but struggled to stop them. He had stepped back from daily operations to focus on vision and strategy. Jim Donald became CEO. In 2005, Donald was operations focused and pushed aggressive expansion. He opened stores even in locations that didn't make sense. If there was traffic, put in a Starbucks. The expansion cannibalized existing stores. You'd have 3 Starbucks within blocks of each other. Each individual store made less money because they were stealing customers from each other. But total revenue went up, so Wall Street was happy. In February 2007, Howard Schultz sent an internal memo that was leaked to the press. It became known as the commoditization of the Starbucks experience memo. Schultz wrote that Starbucks had made decisions that resulted in the watering down of the Starbucks experience and that they had lost some of the heritage, tradition, and passion that we all have for the true Starbucks experience. The memo listed specific problems. Automatic espresso machines removed theater and romance. Flavor lock packaging was more efficient but less artisanal. Stores looked generic. The coffee aroma was gone. Starbucks felt like McDonald's, not like the Italian espresso bars that inspired the original vision. Wall Street dismissed the memo. Starbucks was growing. Revenue was up. What was the problem? But Schultz understood something analysts didn't. Starbucks' brand was built on experience and emotion. If it disappeared, customers would go elsewhere. And they were starting to. Customer satisfaction scores were declining. Traffic was slowing. Same-store sales growth was weakening. Then the 2008 financial crisis hit. Luxury spending collapsed. People cut back on $4 lattes. Starbucks stock price, which had peaked around $40 in 2006, crashed to $8 by late 2008. Starbucks was in crisis. They were closing stores and laying off employees. For the first time in company history, the board panicked. In January 2008, they asked Howard Schultz to return as CEO. Schultz had stepped down as CEO in 2000 to focus on innovation and global strategy as chairman. Now he was being asked to save the company. Schultz accepted, but knew the situation was dire. Starbucks had over 16,000 stores, many losing money. They had expanded too fast without maintaining quality. They had competitors like Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's offering cheaper coffee. Independent coffee shops offered better quality and atmosphere. Starbucks was stuck in the middle, not the cheapest and not the best. Schultz made a decision. That shocked everyone. On February 26, 2008, Starbucks would close all 7,100 U.S. stores for 3 hours to retrain 135,000 baristas on making perfect espresso drinks. This had never been done before. No major chain had voluntarily closed all their stores. The cost was massive. Starbucks would lose millions in revenue during those 3 hours. But Schultz believed the message was worth it. He was telling employees that quality mattered more than efficiency. He was telling customers that Starbucks cared about getting coffee right. And he was telling Wall Street that Starbucks would focus on experience, not just growth. The training focused on basics. How to properly steam milk, how to pull perfect espresso shots, how to create latte art. Many baristas had been hired during rapid expansion and never received proper training. Older baristas shared knowledge with newer ones. It was about rebuilding craft and pride in the work. Critics mocked the decision. Closing stores for training seemed like pure stunt. 3 hours couldn't fix Starbucks problems, but Schultz understood the symbolic importance. This closing announced that change was coming. Starbucks was returning to its roots, Schultz made other dramatic moves. He announced Starbucks would close 900 stores, mostly in the US. This was painful. Thousands of employees lost jobs. But these stores were unprofitable and cannibalizing other locations. Closing them improved overall economics and sent a message that reckless expansion was over. Schultz cut costs aggressively. He eliminated layers of management. He reduced corporate overhead. He killed projects that didn't align with core coffee business. He stopped expanding and focused on fixing what existed. But Schultz didn't just cut. He invested in quality. Starbucks bought new espresso machines for stores. These machines made better espresso and brought back the theater of baristas pulling shots. They were expensive but improved the product and experience. Starbucks brought back coffee grinding in stores. The aroma of fresh ground coffee returned. They improved food offerings, partnering with better suppliers. They tested new store designs that felt warmer and more local. Schultz also focused on digital innovation. Starbucks launched mobile ordering and payment. This was revolutionary in 2009. You could order on your phone and skip the line. The Starbucks app became incredibly popular. Digital orders now represent over a quarter of all transactions. The loyalty program was redesigned. My Starbucks Rewards created obsessed customers who earned stars for purchases and got free drinks. Gamification made people visit more often. The program now has over 30 million active members. Schultz wrote letters to customers explaining what Starbucks was doing and why. He appeared in videos talking about quality and values. He made himself the face of the turnaround. This transparency built trust. Customers could see Schultz personally cared about fixing Starbucks. Inside the company, Schultz rebuilt culture. He called employees partners and treated them as crucial to success. Starbucks offered health insurance to part-time employees, unusual in retail. They offered stock options. They paid for college education through a partnership with Arizona State University. These benefits cost money but created loyalty. Turnover decreased. Experienced baristas stayed longer. Service improved. Investing in employees paid off through better customer experience. Schultz also addressed social issues. Starbucks committed to ethical sourcing. They worked directly with coffee farmers to ensure fair prices and sustainable practices. This appealed to socially conscious consumers and differentiated Starbucks from competitors. The turnaround wasn't instant. Starbucks continued, struggling through 2008 and 2009. But by 2010, signs of recovery appeared. Same-store sales growth turned positive. Customer satisfaction improved. The stock price started recovering. By 2012, Starbucks was thriving again. The stock price passed its previous peak. Starbucks was opening stores again, but carefully in locations that made sense. They expanded into new categories like tea with Teavana acquisition and premium coffee with Starbucks Reserve. Revenue and profits reached new highs. By the time Schultz stepped down as CEO again in 2017, Starbucks' transformation was complete. The stock had gone from $8 at the crisis to $60. Market cap had increased tenfold. Starbucks was back to being an admired brand. Let's talk about what Schultz did right because the lessons apply beyond coffee. First, he didn't panic. The immediate response to crisis is often cutting everything. Schultz cut costs, but also invested in quality. He understood you can't save your way to prosperity. Second, he focused on the customer experience. Every decision was filtered through whether it improved the customer's experience. Automatic espresso machines were efficient but hurt experience. They were replaced. This focus aligned the entire organization. Third, he communicated a clear vision. Schultz constantly talked about returning to the third place concept. Everyone knew what they were trying to achieve. Clear vision makes decision-making easier at every level. Fourth, he led by example. Schultz didn't just issue orders from headquarters. He visited stores, talked to baristas, and listened to customers. He made himself visible and accountable. People followed him because he clearly cared. Fifth, He made bold, symbolic moves. Closing all stores for training was expensive and risky, but it signaled commitment to change. Sometimes you need dramatic gestures to show you're serious. Sixth, he addressed root causes, not symptoms. The problem wasn't just falling sales. It was that Starbucks had lost what made it special. Schultz fixed the underlying issues instead of applying band-aids. Seventh, he balanced short-term and long-term. Closing unprofitable stores improved near-term economics. Investing in quality and training built long-term brand value. Both were necessary. Eighth, he rebuilt culture. Starbucks' problems weren't just operational. The culture had become focused on speed and growth instead of quality and experience. Schultz made culture a priority. Understanding it drives everything else. There are also lessons about what went wrong initially. Starbucks' near-death experience came from losing sight of their purpose. They started optimizing for Wall Street metrics instead of customer experience. Revenue growth became the goal instead of the means to serve customers better. This is a common trap. Public companies face pressure to grow earnings every quarter. This pressure leads to shortcuts. Lower quality ingredients to improve margins. Reduce service to increase throughput. Cut training to save costs. Each decision makes sense individually, but collectively they destroy what made the company valuable. Starbucks also shows the danger of growth for growth's sake. Opening stores everywhere increased revenue but degraded brand exclusivity and cannibalized existing locations. Smarter, slower growth would have been more profitable and sustainable. The founder's role is interesting too. Howard Schultz came back and saved Starbucks because he held the original vision. He remembered why Starbucks existed. Professional managers like Jim Donald were skilled operators but didn't have emotional connection to the founding vision. Sometimes companies need founders to remind them who they are, but founder returns often fail. Steve Jobs returning to Apple is the famous success, but many founders return and fail because they can't adapt to how the company has changed. Schultz succeeded partly because he did adapt. He didn't just restore the past. He modernized with mobile ordering and digital innovation while preserving core values. The story also reveals the importance of having something worth saving. Starbucks could be saved because underneath the problems was a strong brand and loyal customers. They had lost their way, but people still remembered what Starbucks had been. If the brand was fundamentally weak, no turnaround would have worked. Let's talk about what happened after. Because Starbucks faced new challenges, success brought complacency again in the 2010s. Starbucks expanded aggressively again. They opened stores in China and other international markets. They acquired companies like Teavana and Evolution Fresh. Some acquisitions worked, others didn't. Teavana stores closed after losing money. Schultz stepped back from CEO role in 2017, staying as executive chairman. Kevin Johnson became CEO. Then Schultz left entirely in 2018. By 2018, Starbucks faced new problems. They had an incident where the black men were arrested at a Philadelphia Starbucks while waiting for a friend. The incident went viral and sparked protests. Starbucks' response was to close 8,000 stores for an afternoon of racial bias training. They were using Schultz's playbook of bold symbolic gestures. Competition increased. Independent coffee shops proliferated. Chains like Blue Bottle and Stumptown offered premium coffee. Dunkin' rebranded and modernized. McDonald's improved their coffee. Starbucks' market position was being squeezed again. Labor issues emerged. Starbucks workers at some stores began unionizing, claiming the company didn't live up to its progressive image. Starbucks fought unionization efforts, creating negative publicity. In 2022, Howard Schultz came back as interim CEO for the third time. Again, Starbucks was struggling. Stock price had stagnated. Same-store sales growth was weak. Schultz came back to steady the ship before a permanent CEO took over. Laxman Narasimhan became CEO in 2023, but was fired in 2024 after poor performance. Brian Niccol, former CEO of Chipotle, took over in September 2024. This shows that turnarounds aren't permanent. Companies need constant attention and adaptation. The work is never done. Starbucks will always face pressure to grow, cut costs, and sacrifice experience. Resisting those pressures requires constant vigilance. The fundamental tension at Starbucks remains. They're a public company expected to grow earnings, but their value comes from experience and quality which don't scale infinitely. How do you satisfy Wall Street's growth demands while preserving what customers love? Starbucks is still figuring this out. There's also the challenge of staying relevant. Coffee culture continues evolving. Younger consumers want sustainability, authenticity, and social responsibility. They're suspicious of big corporations. Independent coffee shops feel more authentic. Starbucks must continually earn loyalty. Starbucks has tried to address this. They've committed to ethical sourcing and reducing environmental impact. They've tested different formats like Starbucks Reserve roasteries that emphasize craft and premiumization. They've expanded plant-based options for health-conscious consumers. But the core challenge remains. Starbucks is huge with over 35,000 stores worldwide. At that scale, maintaining consistency is hard. Ensuring every store delivers the experience Howard Schultz envisioned is nearly impossible. Some standardization is necessary, but too much kills authenticity. The story of Starbucks is really about the challenge of scaling quality and culture. When you have a handful of stores, the founder can visit regularly and ensure everything is perfect. With thousands of stores and hundreds of thousands of employees, you need systems and processes. But systems can crush the human element that makes experiences special. Starbucks at its best succeeds at this. They have systematic training and processes but empower baristas to connect with customers. They have efficient operations but comfortable spaces that invite lingering. They're a massive corporation but feel like a neighborhood coffee shop. Achieving this balance is rare and difficult. The Starbucks comeback is one of the great business turnaround stories. Howard Schultz returned to a company facing existential crisis and saved it by returning to founding principles. He closed stores for training. He shut down unprofitable locations. He invested in quality even while cutting costs. He rebuilt culture and reconnected with customers. The turnaround worked because Schultz understood what made Starbucks special in the first place. It wasn't just coffee. It was the experience, the atmosphere, the sense of community. Starbucks had lost it in the pursuit of growth. Schultz brought it back. But the story is also a warning. Success can blind companies to what made them successful. Starbucks almost destroyed themselves by growing too fast and cutting too many corners. Wall Street's quarterly pressure led to decisions that undermined long-term value. Only crisis forced them to confront these mistakes. The lesson for any business is clear. Never forget why you exist. Don't let growth become the goal instead of the means. Protect what makes you special even when it's hard or expensive. Culture and customer experience aren't soft concepts. They're the foundation of sustainable success. Leadership matters enormously. Schultz's return was crucial because he held the vision and had the credibility to make dramatic changes. Not every company has a founder willing and able to return. Companies should cultivate leaders who understand and protect core values. The boldness of Schultz's moves also matters. Closing all stores for training seemed crazy to many, but bold, visible action was necessary to signal change. Sometimes incremental improvement isn't enough. You need dramatic gestures that force everyone to pay attention. Starbucks also shows that turnarounds aren't permanent. You can save a company but then face new challenges. The work is constant. Markets change. Competitors adapt. Customer expectations evolve. What worked before might not work forever. Companies need continuous innovation and adaptation. For customers, Starbucks' story is a reminder that your loyalty isn't guaranteed. When Starbucks degraded experience, customers left. When they fixed it, customers returned. Companies must constantly earn your business. The moment they take you for granted is the moment they start losing you. The human element of Starbucks' story is also important. This wasn't just about numbers and strategies. It was about Howard Schultz's emotional connection to something he built, his willingness to return and fight to save it. his ability to inspire employees to care about quality and customer experience. Business is ultimately about people, not spreadsheets. Today, Starbucks continues facing challenges. Can they keep growing while maintaining quality? Can they stay relevant to younger consumers? Can they compete with independent shops and innovative chains? Can they balance being a corporation with feeling authentic? These questions don't have easy answers, but Starbucks has proven they can survive and thrive when they stay true to their core purpose. When they remember they're not just selling coffee but selling a moment of comfort and connection. When they treat employees as partners and invest in their success. When they focus on the long term, not just the next quarter. The Starbucks comeback teaches us that failure isn't final. That companies can lose their way and find it again. That vision, leadership, and commitment to values can overcome almost any crisis. And that sometimes losing everything is what forces you to remember what really matters. From nearly going out of business to becoming worth over $100 billion. From closing stores to opening in every market globally. From forgotten values to renewed purpose. Starbucks' journey from failure to fortune isn't just inspiring. It's a masterclass in what it takes to build, rebuild, and sustain a great company. And it all started with one decision: to remember why Starbucks existed in the first place, and fight to bring the vision back to life. Subscribe to see more inspiring comeback stories that prove failure isn't the end.